YouTube. I wanted to come on here to talk about something that I thought about following the tragic events that happened in the prior week with the school shooting in Florida. I was thinking about how the individuals, because actually I think there were 3 other school shootings that happened in this year so far in 2018, and we're only a month and a half in. And of course there have been a number of them in recent years. I was thinking about all of the individuals who have committed these types of crimes. They fit a particular demographic. It made me think of why are these individuals committing these crimes? I thought about the fact that it's almost like a cultural thing amongst the people in this group, and it made me think about this book I read not too long ago called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. One of the stories that he mentioned in his book, well, the book is actually about how trends or social behaviors become sort of like an epidemic, how they spread, and then everyone's doing it or using it or whatever. And one of the stories he discussed in his book is about this one society, I think it's a island somewhere called Micronesia. On this island, the young men on this island at one point in time were killing themselves at alarming rates. And he talks about how it all started with this one individual, this one young man who was having relationship problems. And he decided to take his own life. And then 3 days after that, another young man decided to take his life. And then just like that, it was becoming a constant thing. And sometimes for really small issues. And I think he even mentioned in the book how the first guy, what he did was he wrote a letter stating, I might have this wrong, but I'm thinking this is what he was talking about, how they wrote a letter and how it was sort of like an act of defiance type of deal. Or at least maybe one of those individuals did. And then a lot of the other young men used it as an option to, I guess, rebel or to be defiant. Because some of the individuals, he said, were probably just, upset with their parents about decisions they made regarding them. And so they were killing themselves. It seemed like young men in this society were intrigued by this because of that, and because it was a form of making a statement. And they didn't really have the mental maturity to understand how making such a permanent decision for a small temporary problem doesn't actually make sense. This story made me think of the mass shootings that have happened, in particular these mass shootings at schools that are happening. I feel the premise is kind of the same. There are these men in America, these young men in America who feel they are dealing with issues and they don't know how to deal with them in a rational manner. There have been so many of these shootings as of late that a lot of people are asking, why is this happening? What's the problem? What's going on? This doesn't make sense. These mass shootings have become a part of the American culture. Just as suicides became a part of the culture of Micronesia amongst those young boys, it seems similar with the mass shootings here in America. With the increase in access to news through media, I believe the coverage of these events again and again are ingrained into these young boys' minds and have created this culture in our society. I wonder if these types of events weren't popularized, if every time something like this happened, it wasn't blasted across every piece of media available. Could it lead to a decrease in mass shootings? I went onto the CNN website one day following the shootings. I go on there daily just to look at, what's happening in the news. And the day of the shooting, of course, I went on there or the day after the shooting, I believe. And I want to say like 20 of their stories that they had listed on their website pertain to the mass shooting or mass shootings in the past. If this group of young men weren't inundated with coverage of these tragic events, would they be less inclined to view this as an option when they are dealing with difficult things? Would it no longer be an option? The only options you have are the options that you know of. If you don't know of a particular option, you don't think to take that course, right? For the young men in Micronesia, suicide definitely became an option, with them constantly seeing other young men do it and do it as an act of rebellion. It became an option for them when they were dealing with difficult things. If these stories were not popularized in media, would it stop being an option for these people? These mass shootings? I don't know. This is just something that I thought of when I was thinking of the mass shootings, and also remembering this story that I read in that book, Tipping Point. I'm not even sure if it could happen. I mean, but even if media outlets like the news or publications didn't or decreased their coverage of these types of events, there still is social media. But it's definitely something to think about. Just think, if it could happen, what would be the results? Because this is definitely a cultural phenomenon, and I think it's important to know why possibly is it even happening. Because if we know why is it happening, maybe we can stop it. That's it. And that's all. Tell me what you think. Bye.